Good morning. I'm just going to start out with apologies in case I'm as excited as I normally would be here, because I'm just really tired. I could cry with how tired I am. So apologies for that. For anyone who doesn't know who I am, my name is Brianne. I used to be the youth worker here, and I'm sometimes on worship, so some people might recognise me from that. And I'm now a newly qualified teacher of RMPS. Woo! So I start my first teaching job next week, which is really exciting. Today we're going to be looking at the parable Jesus told of the wise and foolish builders in Matthew 7. So we're going to read that story together, and then I'm going to run through something that I thought about when I was reading it, and maybe give you something to think about as well. So let's read it together. I think there will be a slide coming up in it as well. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods, the winds blew, and beat it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man, his house, and the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell. Great was the fall of it. So when I was reading this through and thinking about this series of Simply Jesus, two things that came to mind about this story. The first is that the storm happened either way, which I thought was quite interesting. I feel like I've never thought about that before. But either way, the storm came. And the second one was the division between Jesus and religious establishment. I'm going to do like a quick fire, what I mean by those two things, before we get on to splitting. So in terms of the inevitability of a storm, this is a bit of a spoiler, but we will be discussing this question downstairs. I also thought, though, it was posing to everybody, it was a question. And maybe it's something that you can consider up here as well if you stay wherever your mind takes you. I don't know if people know the term Christianese. It's kind of a made-up term that some of us use or use in office and stuff. But the word Christianese, for anybody who doesn't know, has become like a slang term for when Christians have Christian things that they say that mean something to people with a specific type of humanity or engage in a specific kind of church. And it's very like exclusive language that actually doesn't include, like if a randomer came in here who'd been to church before and I started speaking Christianese, they'd be like, "What?" They wouldn't know what I was talking about. But the church know what I was talking about. If that makes sense, hopefully that makes sense. And the thing about this thing of like building your house on the rock and building your house in the sand and Jesus being our foundation, I kind of suddenly was like, does that actually even mean that Jesus is our foundation? Is that just Christianese? What do we know? What does that mean to us to have Jesus foundation? Our foundation in what? With what? When? With everything, with specific things? Does it actually work that way? What do we mean? So that was one thing that I suppose could mean a different thing to everybody. I'm going to be able to answer that right now, especially when we've got 5 minutes to speak. But again, this is that we're going to be chatting about down the stairs later on. But I just thought the kind of idea of Christianese and how exclusionary that is and what does having Jesus as your foundation even mean, then that's worth everybody thinking about and knowing what they actually mean by that. The second thing, the division between Jesus and the religious establishment, something that got me a lot excited when I was looking into stuff for this sermon, because way back in February, I can't remember, we had a speakers meeting where they that had done sermons for St. John's all went to this meeting and we chatted about what do we actually want sermons about for the next 18 months. Asked at that meeting that I want to a sermon that looked into what Jesus actually said rather than diving into what a theologian might have thought about. Or I feel like quite a lot of the time we get to a point, especially now when Christianity is so old, that we just talk about stuff in a way as if it's truth, when it's just something that the church has said for 50 years, and then we actually, Jesus never said that. So I was like, I want to do a sermon series where we actually, what did he actually say, instead of talking about what somebody said about what somebody said about what somebody said about what Jesus said. And I feel like I read this parable about the wise and foolish builders, and then I read I've got a study Bible, and I was like reading what the study Bible said about it, and it seemed to be basically that, where it was like, what was Jesus actually saying? What was the religious establishment saying at the time? And I was like, whoa, that's what about this whole time. So that was quite cool. And also, like Malachi Chalmers, I don't know if he's here, but he got really excited one time when I said it's Christianity, not churchianity, and he was obsessed with that for a while. But that felt like a whole story, because my Bible said, Jesus calls the audience to decide between him and the religious establishment, drawing a dividing line between himself and any other foundation for life. And I just love when things come together like that, because that's exactly what I've been talking about this whole time. And that's another thing, spoiler alert, that we're going to go into a bit more in depth down the stairs if you want to come down there for a chat later. But one thing that I am going to ask is, what is the religious establishment now? Is that still a thing, or is there still to be made? Maybe there is, I don't know, but we're going to chat about it. One of the things that I love the John Church is that we are a church that encourages people to question things. We're a church that doesn't want people to just like things that they've told. And it's so easy not to even realise we're doing that. I feel quite frustrated often with church or Christians in general for just doing what they've always did, or believing what they've always been told to believe, instead of being a true representation of Jesus on earth and who Jesus revealed himself to be. And it's easy to hear the same things for years in church services or from Christian leaders and just accept that as the truth. But the reality is, Jesus talked about everything. He wasn't put in every single situation. At least effective, I can't was. And for me, when I think about my faith and all the doubts I constantly have, because I constantly do have, Jesus is the guy that I care about the most. He's the coolest dude that ever lived. He's the guy I like. Well, actually, what I care about is, what did Jesus say? How did Jesus show himself? And that's how I want to show myself. So here's my solution. And it's that easy. The next slide as well, you can feel free to take a photo of it if you want. I'm going to set it up at the end as well, but if not, this is my solution to the great problem. Think about what you believe. If something that you believe, or anytime you want to talk to somebody or do something in the name of your faith or in the name of Jesus, or because you think you should do that as a Christian, think about what you believe. Did Jesus say that? If not, did say that? Based on, what was the context of that? Why were they saying that? And as you're saying or doing, are you going to represent him, truly represent Jesus and the person that he was? Because we represent Jesus. We are here, and we are people who represent Jesus. So we want to do that as faithfully as we can. None of us are going to do it perfectly. I definitely don't. But this is a good way to try. This here. So what we're going to do now is, I've got a bunch of questions. Some of them you've already had a teaser of. And we're going to split up. Some people can come downstairs, and I've got 5 questions for us just to chat about down the stairs in meeting room 3. And the rest of us, if you want to, can stay up here. There's like arts and craft tables. There's play. There's worship is going to be on. It's all age, plenty of stuff to do up here if you want to stay up here, or you can come down and do a kind of Bible study / discussion thing with me down the stairs. So I'm going to head down, and you guys make your choice.